You may have first seen Ethan Hawke many moons ago in Training Day, but who knew he could be so darn funny?
What about this whodunit makes it feel slightly like Breaking Bad?
Red and Red Real Reviews sniffs out the clues for FX's The Lowdown on Hulu.
I knew within the first 5 minutes I was gonna hate it, but then it was so bad. Ugh.
Nobody wants this. Like you
Literally
hear,
nobody
hold on,
wants this.
internet's gonna get mad at me for this one. There's no fat elf, you know.
Duty, which I can't say without laughing. Duty, like I'm English.
John B and Sarah are, I mean, I don't want to sound like a loser for saying this, but they're adorable. I'll admit it. And welcome back into another episode of Red and Red Real Reviews and talk about inconsistency and new releases with the new season we've had. We're doing this new format and we've had a full season drop. We've had a singular episode premiere and now we have a 2 episode release. So we are very, very much testing out this new format in the heat of the fire.
Yeah, we're the absolute freaking worst. Like we just had all these random releases that are releasing close together. We're like, we have to do this one, we have to do this one. So
Yeah.
we're a little bit wonky. We're all over the place, but stick around.
And you know what? If you don't think it's wonky, or maybe you do and you want to let us know, contact us. Red and Red Real Reviews at gmail.com. And get in touch with us on Instagram at Red and Red Real Reviews. That is the letter N and real spelled with 2 E's. So FX is The Lowdown on Hulu. This kind of is a street urchin of a writer. He's struggling to get by both in his role as this freelance writer journalist. He calls himself the truth historian to this large group of well-to-do people in town. And then he's also trying to keep this fledgling bookstore alive. So he's very much kind of living by the skin of his teeth a lot. And he's trying to maintain a relationship with his daughter, with his ex-wife, wife, estranged longtime girlfriend, whatever the case may be. His name is Lee Raybon. He's played by Ethan Hawke. And there's a lot of intrigue, I think, as this series has progressed in the early going. So we got to tell the audience, should they watch it?
So this was a difficult one for me, which is funny because I'm the one we suggested watch it, but I had a little bit of trouble with it. I really wanted to like it, but I would still encourage people to watch and give it a chance. Like I'm going to continue with it, even though I wasn't super hooked after 2 episodes, just because we've seen slower paced shows in the past, like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. And yeah, it takes a lot for them to get going, but once they do, they develop into something really good. So sometimes, like, I try to give things a good 3 or 4 episodes before I drop it, just because sometimes there is that slow burn and it does get good, but you have to give it a little time to get started. So yeah, I mean, I would give it another chance, but I wasn't really very engaged with these first 2 episodes. And I did enjoy the writing. We'll talk more about that later. But past that, I was really kind of struggling. Like I was very distracted. I was picking up my phone. I found myself pretty bored. Don't at me, but I was bored.
To that point, I also found that the first episode and the second episode, I had a similar experience to that with between the two. Like the first episode, I found was a little bit more of a slow burn, and then the second episode
Mm-hmm.
started to pick up a little bit more, but it was still kind of slow.
Yeah.
But I would similarly, I would say yes, but yes with a caveat because
Hmm.
I think that this slow burn nature of it is also a little bit due to just the show's premise. You know, there's a little bit of a mystery aspect. There's a little bit of a I don't want to say who done it, but like there's a little bit
Yeah.
of a crime thriller aspect to it. So I just think due to the nature of the content, that build up is a bit expected. So I I had the same experience with like the slow burn effect, but I also kind of had to keep telling myself in my head, this might be by design because of how this show just unfolds as it does.
Yeah, and I don't usually quote Sarah McLachlan songs, but I think they're building a mystery, so to speak. So that was the part of it that appealed to me. You know, I saw Ethan Hawke. I'm like, oh, he's great. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to watch it is because Ethan Hawke and the fact that he's an investigator. I was like, this has to be a whodunit. That's
Right.
exactly what I would call it. So yeah, maybe we just need to give it a little time to get going.
Yeah, and it like we sit here and we say yes, recommend, yes, give it a chance, but we also have to be honest with the audience as far as being if you have a weak stomach for weekly shows that progress slowly or don't have the patience for crime thrillers, it's like kind of just have that notion going into it.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I remember famously Miley Cyrus, she was talking about Breaking Bad in an interview and she's like, "Yeah, I just couldn't get into that show." And people are like, "You're stupid." Like that's one of the best shows ever. So similar to what you're saying, not that we want to insult the intelligence of our viewers, but if you didn't care for Breaking Bad or like those Vince Gilligan shows like Better Call
Mhm.
Saul, which would famously go on for 10 or 15 minutes without any dialogue,
Yeah,
this is going to be a rough one for you. Like, just putting that out there. Going to be
yeah.
rough.
And we'll get into a little bit later on as far as dialogue because that'll be a
Yeah.
slight bit of a foreshadow there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I actually had that experience happen with a couple people in real life that Breaking Bad didn't catch them right away because and for the same reasons like oh it's so slow to start. I'm like you need to sit there and watch this show. It will
Yeah.
hook you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. You just have to be willing to give it a chance. And some people will dip out after one episode. They'll be like, can't do it, dipping out.
right. That attention span of a gnat thing.
Yep.
All right, as we get into our one thing to watch, one thing to look for, Binge the Ginge, you are up first.
So my one thing is the entire cast. So obviously we have Ethan Hawke, but besides him, there's a whole cast of characters, and they're almost all familiar faces. So they may not be names that you would know outright, but they're all familiar faces, and they're solid actors. So they make up this great ensemble cast. So a couple of the notable faces that I wrote down are Kyle MacLachlan. He's from Twin Peaks, Portlandia. He played the quirky mayor. And then Sex in the City, he played Charlotte's first husband, Trey. And then Keith David, he's a familiar face. That name might not mean anything to you, but if you look this guy up on Google, you'll be like, oh, I know that guy. And he's been in so many things. He has such an extensive filmography that just this year in 2025, and the year isn't even over, he's been in like 10 to 15 projects just this year. So he's a very busy working actor. And then
Yeah,
last, and I know you have some things to say about this, we have Jean Triplehorn. So there are some things she's been in recently, and I'll let you go into her older projects. But recently, she's been in Terminal List with Chris Pratt on Amazon, which is a great show, and then Gilded Age on HBO. So she's been in some projects recently, and she's continuing to work to this day.
I actually I have a note about each one of those, so
Ah,
I'll go down the list, and one of them I guess I didn't mark it ahead of time, so I'll surprise you. But Kyle
okay.
MacLachlan, I recognize the name, and I knew the face. I kind of knew the face too. But what it's funny what I always recognize him from. He is the captain in How I Met Your Mother. Um, he was one of Ted's flames, one of his well, not his flames, one of his interests. She was either married or engaged to this very, very wealthy man, and there was always like
Oh,
the
okay.
captain, the captain, the captain, and that was Kyle MacLachlan. And he was such an eccentric character. I see his face, and that's just what I think of first every time.
Oh, okay. That I didn't watch like all of How I Met Your Mother. I watched
Yeah.
some random that kind of sounds familiar, but he's been in a lot too. He's been a working actor for like 30 years. He's been in a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, and I always but maybe it's just because of the notion of his character's name in that show.
Mm,
But I also kind of confuse him with the governor in Walking Dead, who is not the same actor, but I also kind of but they look somewhat vaguely familiar, or similar, so they kind of mix it up there too. Keith David. I was saying it's funny when you said if you don't know his face, you will. To me, with Keith David is you if you don't know his face, you will absolutely know his voice.
mm,
That man, I mean, everyone always says, and rightly so. Morgan Freeman is, the voice of the stars, the voice of Hollywood, what have you, or
yeah.
James Earl Jones. Like these very iconic voices. But to me, Keith David is an extremely iconic voice, very deep, very booming, kind of that take over a room type of voice. And the first time and maybe it's also partly due to the fact that of my first exposure to Keith David because he voiced Goliath in the Disney cartoon Gargoyles in the '90s, in the mid '90s.
I
So
know you're a
that
gargoyles junkie because
I,
you've brought up
I
gargoyles before on this podcast.
I'm a very big yes, I'm a very big Gargoyles junkie, Funko Pops and all. Um, and so like that's the first time I really knew Keith David, and the first time you hear his voice, you will never forget his voice.
Mm.
And like even if you're watching something and you're multitasking or you're fixing supper or whatever, um, and the TV's on the background, you hear him just happen to walk into a scene, like immediately you'll know who it is right away.
Yeah, and that explains why literally at least half of the projects he had listed for the past few years are voice acting projects.
Yeah, very very distinctive voice, and he's been around quite a while. The
Mm.
other note on Keith David is he played the admiral who was, I guess, probably the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Armageddon.
Yep, that was under his best known for. And
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I've seen Armageddon, so I couldn't recall that, but I did see that listed.
yeah. This is Kinsey here. Yes, sir. I understand.
Yeah,
Sounds
that
more like
checks out
Patrick
because
Stewart, but whatever.
he does kind of have that like booming voice.
Yeah, very, very, very strong and authoritative.
Yeah.
And the third one, Jeanne Triplehorn. I was amused by because like I saw her name and I recognized it. I don't know if she was in the first episode or it was kind of like a blink and you'll miss it moment in the first episode. She was more in the second episode, and I was like, I kind of recognize that name. I was like, I think I know what it's from, and then I see her and I'm like, yeah, she kind of looks like what I'm thinking of. So I looked it up online to confirm, and she played Helen in Waterworld with Kevin Costner. And this movie probably really got obliterated by critics.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those like real. I don't necessarily think it bombed in the movie theaters, but at least in terms of quality of movie, it bombed. But I freaking love that movie. That is my favorite bad movie of all time.
You're not the only one. Like I distinctly remember, and this was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years after it was originally released, Waterworld. I remember I came home from probably my from high school or my job at the video store, and I came home one night and my dad and my sister were watching Waterworld on like HBO or something, and I was like, oh, this movie with the girl with the hair, oh, it looks so terrible. And they were like glued to the screen watching it.
Yeah, there's something about it. If that movie has the ability to captivate you, if you are captivated by that type of stuff. Like I mean, I kind of had a little bit of a nautical upbringing, so like anything kind of in that vein is gonna have some interest to me. But just like it was like probably one of the early post-apocalyptic type of movies, at least in my cinematic appreciation phase of life. So
Yeah, it was kind of one of the first, I don't want to say the first movie of its kind, but yeah, it was like the early 90s when there weren't really a lot of movies about that stuff. And then I remember being pretty, did that come out in 1994, 1996 or something like that? I was pretty young and
Yeah, in that range. In that range.
I remember just thinking, oh man, this has the girl from Andre in it. And they hacked the hell out of her hair and she looks like a boy. That's all like I remember of Waterworld.
Tina Majorino, who was also what's her face from Napoleon Dynamite. Um,
Oh
that's
yeah,
also who
yeah.
that is, yeah. And I actually added her an Instagram story a few years ago, and she reposted it. So if Tina Majorino watches this
Ah.
podcast, listens to this podcast, that's me. Remember me?
I think of her in Napoleon Dynamite as like her main role where, she's got like the side pony and
Yeah.
are you drinking 1% because you think you're fat?
Yeah. So I mean, my notes from the characters in the lowdown are maybe a little more niche than yours. I mean, Sex
Yeah,
and the
for
City
sure.
probably a far bigger and well known project.
Yeah, you actually knew the names. I was like, I recognize the faces for sure of these people, but you more so recognize the names and the voices.
Yeah. Well, speaking of voices, one thing that people's voices tend to do is make jokes. And my one thing is a lot of the humor in the lowdown. This is a drama, but there is a significant lighter side to this. And a lot of it is written in just Ethan Hawke's dialogue. Like I did not necessarily realize how funny Ethan Hawke could be. He's got this very dry wit, at least as portrayed in the Lee Raybon character.
Oh yeah, he can be very I think of him from the there was an original movie and then they did a remake it was like Before Sunset or something like that. It's literally about him meeting a woman and they like talk for hours and hours. Then like they made a sequel like 10 or 15 years later. I don't know, something. So I remember that movie, which was like a romantic drama kind of. But yeah, I think he comes across as very charming and he does have a wittiness to him, like even when he's playing a character. So of course, with this character, it's a very eccentric guy who's kind of all over the place. Like I forget how he refers to it, but he's like, basically I'm a unemployed investigator or something like that. He kind of jokes about like what a loser he is.
Yeah.
And even the other supporting characters, like he had that friend in the bookstore that I don't know, everyone he interacted with too had a great humor. So for me, I think that the humor in the humor in the writing is probably going to be the reason that I continue watching this show.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely it definitely will be a significant part to enhance. Like
Mm,
I'm kind of in it enough as far as the flow of the story to want to continue watching it anyway. But the humor will enhance my desire to continue watching it because
yes,
if I get a flat episode, at least I'm more or less guaranteed to have a couple laughs out of it.
true. That's true.
Yeah. And I pulled out a couple lines, but since you brought up the dialogue of the side characters as well, one that I really got a kick out of. I don't want to say this is a spoiler, but he gets into a skirmish with a couple of goon characters. And he comes back to the bookstore and he's very disheveled and he's kind of hiding a black eye, whatever.
Hmm.
And his employee Deirdre, who she and him kind of have a little back and forth, some funny back and forth dialogue too. She looks at him and she says, like, "You look like a redneck Elton John," because he's got these massive glasses on and this funky snapback hat. So I got a kind of a kick out of that one.
Yeah, they were all like making fun of each other, even his friends are making fun of him. And I found that charming and I thought it was clever and witty, all the writing the
Mhm.
humor that came out of the writing.
Yeah, and you you in the past you've been known to be a Mean Girls fan or viewer
I
at
love
times.
Mean Girls. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
that's what I thought. So when he's calling when he's working the phones
Oh.
to find out more about this kind of developer tycoon that he thinks
Mhm.
is tied in with this company at Akron, whatever, that's kind of doing a lot of projects in the town. Um, and his daughter Frances is sitting in the car next to him, and she's asking what he's doing, and he's like, "Oh, this guy Alan, he's up there. He's trying to say like he's up to no good. He's a bad guy." And he goes like, "He's a bad guy. He's like Regina George bad."
Yeah, he's like speaking her language because I haven't watched it and I can't bring myself to, but they just had
The
a
new
Mean
one.
Girls musical come out in the past year or two. Like I cannot, will not, no.
I mean, it can't be much worse than the Sex and the City remake, right? I mean, just compare it to that.
Oh God, nothing could be as bad as that. That was awful.
See, so you already have a floor, so you can't be disappointed that much.
But at least Sex and the City, the remake is dead. So no terribleness that can come of it, but yet this Mean Girls musical is still on Broadway and stuff like that. So no, not ever giving in and going to see something like that because it's just going to butcher the movie for me.
Oh no, it can't. No, the original can never be ruined by a bad remake because you can always watch the original.
Yeah, but when you add in corny songs and like people breaking into song, that would definitely ruin it for me. I hate
Yeah,
musicals.
you have a problem with musicals that
I have a
I do
problem.
not.
That's putting it mildly. That's very much putting it mildly.
um, and one of the funny lines I pulled out was very early on. He's trying to. It's almost like he has like this researcher he's got who's employed by him
Mm.
is kind of not really buying the whole uh, reporter, journalist, that sort of thing. He's just kind of like there and does the job for him, but he doesn't really like believe in Ray Bond's
Mm.
kind of energy behind it. And he's trying to convince him to dig into this Washburn character who is a local politician. Uh, his his brother, I don't want to spoil it, even though it's right off the top of the show, so everyone would know right away. The details surrounding what happened to this guy's brother, and he goes, "Did you hear the story about FDR, where like the first time he saw the name Adolf Hitler, he knew it was his job to stop him?" And the guy looks at him, he's like, "So it's saying it's your job to stop Donald Washburn?" It's like, "No, I'm saying a faint heart never fucked the bobcat." And I'm like, what?
Huh?
Is this like one of those like grab life by the brass balls moments, and it's just awkwardly delivered in dialogue. Like,
Like what does that even mean? Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's just trying to show what type of character it is, like just
yeah,
by saying something off the wall.
yeah. Well, hopefully you don't think either of us are off the wall, or maybe you do, and maybe that's part of our appeal. If you enjoy listening to this show, we would very much appreciate a 5-star review. If you are listening to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can also watch us on YouTube and Rumble as well, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow or subscribe button. We are at the mercy of when these shows release, so please turn on the notification bell so you know when our episodes go live. Next up, I guess we're kind of staying in the Hulu vibe. We hit the gridiron for, at least as far as the bio on the show is concerned, a case of mistaken identity, maybe. But inside the minds of the Manning brothers, and once again, potentially putting Binge the Ginge out of her wheelhouse with a sports show. Check out our recap of Chad Powers on Hulu. Until the next real review, Red and Red are signing out.